update on blogging for business. This webinar is being presented by Brandon Campbell. She is a SCORE workshop presenter and owner of Brandon Campbell Communications. We thank you, Brandon, for sharing this important information and trust all of our viewers will find it informative and helpful. My name is Leslie Swope, and I am a volunteer with SCORE of Chester and Delaware counties. SCORE is a nonprofit organization that has been in existence for over 50 years and is a resource partner of the SBA. SCORE's mission is to foster a strong small business community by providing free mentorship and business education. We are here to support you and help you grow your business. Here in Chester and Delaware counties, we have 100 volunteers ready to help. Our mentoring and most of our educational programs are free. You will find many tools, templates, and other business resources on our website, Resource Library. This presentation for Blogging for Business will be available to you after today's session. You'll all be placed on mute to avoid any distractions. Brandon is happy to address your questions in the Q&A box, and she'll take it mainly during the middle of the presentation and at the end of the presentation. Please use the Q&A box for questions and use the chat if you have a comment or something you would like to share. So at this point, let me turn it over, stop sharing my screen, and have Brandon begin. Thank you all for your patience. Brandon, audio.
Okay, there we go. Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us and for bearing with us through a few technical difficulties. It has to happen, right? I am Brandon Campbell, and I will be talking to you today about one of my favorite subjects, blogging. And I will share my screen and give you a little bit of background on who I am. So let's see here. It is hard to do this at the same time as talking. While I'm getting this ready, just to let you know who I am the founder and president of Brandon Campbell Communications. I got my start in business as a freelance writer and blogger. I had a sports blog, of all things, called Philly Sports News that gained a following and had some success that led to doing some digital content for the Philadelphia Eagles, as well as the NFL and many other clients. When I started my business, my purpose was to support small business owners in content strategy and content creation, recognizing that many of them did not have time to blog or weren't sure what they should be talking about in their marketing. Since then, that was in 2017 when I started my business full time. I now focus on inclusive content, inclusive marketing, helping folks reach a diverse audience authentically, and I do diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting and training. So our topic today, as I mentioned, is near and dear to my heart, as it's how I got my start in business and as a business owner. When we talk about blogging, it's important to discuss what that word means. We hear it, but do we actually know what it means? There are different types. So the word itself is a combination of the words web and blog. Put those together, and it's literally you're logging your thoughts or post in time. It's in a reverse chronological order. So that's the basics of where the term comes from. There is an immense blogosphere, as it's called, as you may know. There are tons of types of blogs. Sports, fashion, entertainment, news, business, so many more categories than this. I'd love you to think about some of the blogs that you may read on a regular basis. You may be aware that they're considered blogs, you may not be aware, just to further give us some reference. So there are some examples, like I moved the slide too early, but some examples like Huffington Post is actually considered a blog. That's a news blog. You may have heard of I Can Has Cheeseburger, which is a comedic blog. There are a lot of pop culture blogs, sports blogs like Yahoo Sports. There are just so many that may already be a part of your life. You may be thinking now, well, what do those have to do with blogging for business? We'll talk about some of the threads I'd like you to think about throughout the presentation, but there are really significant and convincing reasons for small businesses to blog. Most significantly, they will help increase your web traffic by having and maintaining a blog. Studies show that businesses who blog have 55% more website traffic than those who don't. Small businesses who blog have 126% more lead growth than companies who don't. And according to BlogHer, 81% of Americans trust information and advice from blogs. So that's where it helps position yourself as an authority, and it also improves the SEO on your website. SEO is probably something you have heard about, search engine optimization. I don't want to go too much into it. I don't want your heads to spin, but I will give an overview of the topic because it does relate to blogging and it is one of the reasons to blog. So what it refers to is the way essentially that people find your website. So it relates to the terms folks may use to find your blog, and it refers to ways that you can use keywords throughout your content to help people find who you are. So there are ways to optimize individual blog posts that we'll talk about a little bit, and just having a blog and maintaining it consistently. There is a critical mass of, it's something like 50 blog posts that once you have that, Google gives you an automatic bump in your ranking, because that shows that you are continually updating your blog, your website. Google loves that. You're keeping things fresh. You're updating your audience. So just by the act of blogging and doing it consistently, that is something that in and of itself will benefit your web presence. So blogging is what's called content marketing. We're familiar with the term marketing, promotion, but content marketing is a little bit different. This definition from the Content Marketing Institute can help frame that. It's a strategic marketing approach focused on creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and retain a clearly defined audience, and ultimately to drive profitable customer action. So you are literally leading with the words you create, with the content you create. And you're using that as a way to move your audience through know, like, and trust. You're providing them with good information, helpful information about your industry or your product or service. And that is what you are doing to put yourself out there. So it's helpful to think of blogging in those terms because it very much relates to what you're trying to achieve. And now we're going backwards. Bear with me. Okay, now we're going the right way. I like content marketing. Hopefully you have kind of a general idea, but I love this quote because I think this really nails the difference. Traditional marketing talks at people. Content marketing talks with them. So if you have a social media presence right now, that's a form of content marketing. And on social media, you very likely engage with people in comments, and that's very much what it's intended to do. It's intended for there to be engagement. So that's something to think about when you're generally thinking about blogging. Going back to the types of blogs that I mentioned earlier, many of them, like Yahoo Sports, like entertainment blogs, they are more casual than other types of writing. News blogs can be a little bit different, but they still tend to be a little bit more casual than what you would read in a newspaper, Huffington Post versus the New York Times, in terms of the style and the approach. So that is very intentional, and it reflects the fact that blogging is meant to be a little more conversational. Even if it's a dense topic, there are ways to try to make it engaging. So content marketing, as I mentioned, is just a really powerful way for any business to get themselves out there, but especially small businesses. It increases sales. It can lead to savings. It's a really cost-efficient form of marketing, and it can lead to better customers who have more loyalty because they have a good idea of who you are and what you provide, and they are very interested. So it's not about selling. That's the one really big difference between content marketing and traditional marketing. It's not about selling, and it's not about talking at your audience. That's not to say that there isn't some promotion in it. Certainly, if you're on social media, if you're having a sale, you want to mention that. But if that's all that you're talking about, people aren't going to be interested. So that's going back to the leading with your content. If you are talking about solving problems, giving insight into your industry, that's the sort of thing people will be interested in and will come back for more. And that's what you're leading with, and not sales. The goal is the same, but you're taking a very different approach than traditional ads, commercials, and traditional marketing. I was doing an event for an organization, an Ask Me Anything about blogging. And it was full of business owners. And someone asked, is there too much noise out there to have room for my blog? Certainly, the blogosphere is a very noisy place. I'm sure there are statistics somewhere, but there are probably hundreds of millions of types of blogs out there, some active, some not. So it's a really good question. But I would say if there's room for your business, then there's a need for your blog. Think about the reasons you started your business. There's nothing new under the sun these days. So using myself as an example, there are many other people who do inclusive marketing or who do DEI consulting. There are tons of different kinds of social media marketers, or let's say pizza shops. But everyone goes into business for a reason, because they feel that they have something to offer. It's very similar with blogging. Think about, what is it that I have to offer? What is my unique selling proposition? And you have a voice, you have an approach. There's something different in the way you run your business than with someone else. So those are really great ways to think about your blog content and ways to approach your blog. Blogging, in a nutshell, builds up trust, and that is the currency for small businesses. Many of us probably purchase from huge multinational corporations on a regular basis. Small businesses have to have relationships with their audience. That's how we stand out. The quality of the relationships we're able to have, that's a huge differentiator. And again, you can move your audience through know, like, and trust by giving them some insight behind the scenes into your business, by giving information that helps solve your audience's problems. You're showing how much you know about your industry. That makes people want to hear what you have to say. And then you have that piece of being able to connect and engage even before folks become customers. And that's really powerful. So hearing all this, you may be thinking, okay, this is good. I've always heard that I should have a blog, but I don't. And there are a lot of really common and really valid reasons for that. Time certainly is at the top of that list. It is so hard to think, especially in this day where this is certainly something I'm struggling with in this time of COVID. I have 2 kids at home balancing remote schooling. You're the CMO and CFO of your business. When on earth am I going to sit down and have time to write? You may have no interest. I hear this one a lot. Some of that is because of misconceptions about what blog blogging is or isn't. The other thing I hear probably as often as I don't have any time, I'm not a good writer. That's not something that you have to worry about. As I mentioned, blogging is a different kind of writing. I'm someone who has always loved writing. I am a good writer, but there was a learning curve for me when I started blogging. The kinds of writing I did, I was a political science major and have a master's in international relations. That kind of writing, certainly there are politics blogs, but at least in the sports blog space, that's not gonna get anyone terribly interested. So it's a different way you write for blogging. So if that's something that's holding you back, free yourself of that a little bit, because that does not mean that you can't have a blog, and it doesn't mean that it can't be a successful blog. And the other huge thing, what am I going to write about? So in terms of those, I shouldn't have advanced the screen yet, but the no time, I'm going to give you some strategies for that. What to write about, we're going to talk about that here and throughout this conversation. And I really would love it to be, as you heard from Leslie, we're going to pause actually in a couple of minutes to just see what initial questions you have. And I want to leave time for Q&A at the beginning. So really want you to ask your questions, make your comments, and then we will kind of catch up when we take pauses. But what to write about really depends on being authentic, being useful, and being consistent. So what do those things mean? If you're your authentic self, you have no competition. Don't know who said that, but I love it. It gets back to the point of there is room for your blog. And to me, that really speaks to leaning into what it is that makes you different. If you are a solopreneur and you are really quirky, put that into your blog. Just find the things that are unique about you. You don't have to go away from them. Don't try to be something that you're not. People can sniff that out pretty easily. Just be who you are, tell stories from your perspective, and that's going to resonate. I like to use the example of cooking blogs, because I'm not someone who cooks. Sometimes I do need to find a very quick and easy recipe. And I've been known to say, oh my goodness, the stories in these blogs, just give me the recipe. But that feeling is because A, I am not the intended audience for a cooking blog. And B, if you don't tell a story, then what's the point? You can get recipes from anywhere. Folks who are interested in cooking and who frequent certain cooking blogs like to hear the perspective of that person. It can be a family story. It can be how they stumbled upon the recipe, but they're giving perspective that is totally different from anyone else. And that's really the biggest value you have to bring to blogging. No one else has your same experience. So leverage that. And thinking about what to write about. This term see. I don't know how I got muted there. I would love to take a pause here. There's a lot to cover still, but I'd love to hear some of the questions that we have so far. Are there any that you're seeing, Leslie?
I don't see any questions at this time. Does anyone have any questions? Just please enter them in the Q&A box.
And that's completely fine if there aren't any there. I'm happy to keep going.
Okay. I'll let you know if I see any.
All right, now, sounds great. We will keep going. Okay, so when you think of what is going to be useful information for me, for my business, a great place to start is thinking of the questions you're asked most often. Your website may already feature an FAQ, most frequently asked questions. That is a great place to start because it shows there's already engagement. People are already interested enough to ask these questions. So make a list of the 10 things you're asked the most. Each topic, at the very least, can be a blog post. Most likely, it may be able to be a series of posts. You may be able to break each question down into a couple of different topics, but that's a great place to start. On your journey to blogging, I would encourage you to have, it could be a Post-it note, it could be the Post-it notes on our phones, it could be a journal you write in, or just a Google Doc on your laptop. I'd strongly encourage you to just have a document where you put ideas. This is a great exercise to start, and then keep adding. Once you think of those questions, you'll probably think of other types of topics that would be helpful, and just get the brainstorming going. You may, as you're looking around on social media or other blogs, you may get some ideas of things you want to write about. You can throw that into the document so that of the challenges that exist around blogging, having ideas won't be one of them. Once you get started, I think you'll find that it's easy to come up with ideas, but having to stop and start can make that process challenging. So just have a document where you have a running list of ideas. And this is what I mean when we talk about valuable content. It's things people want to know about your business, about the services you offer, about the products you offer. It's really important to think about who your customer is in any sort of marketing. And this is no different. Who are they and how are they struggling? That's part of what's going to make my content very different from someone who's a jewelry store owner, or someone who is a personal chef who is sharing recipes. Think about what the information you can provide for free, it's going to be on your blog, that can help solve their problems. What are, if you are a jewelry store owner, I imagine that engagement rings are a big part of your business. What information can you give? Have you seen people come in and fumble around with? What are some of the biggest questions people have? What are some information you can give people on different types of cuts that are popular in engagement rings? So think about what is relevant for your business, what would be helpful for people potentially interested in your business, and that's when you really start to get things rolling. So this I did a little bit early where I was asking for questions. We'll keep going. I'm going to, because we lost a bit of time in the beginning, I'm going to just deal with this part really quickly because it can be a little bit, I don't want us to get lost into it, and we can lose folks at this point. And I don't want that to happen. I want you to be excited about getting to writing and thinking about what you can write. So a question you may have is I'm going to blog, but where do I blog? It's going to be on if your business has a website, it's probably going to be there. And there are tons of platforms where you can blog, but these are just the most popular: WordPress, Wix, and Squarespace. You can think about which of these that you have. I have all of my sites are on WordPress. I'm in the process of moving one over to Squarespace. I've used all of these platforms with customers, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the pros and cons of each. So WordPress, the gold standard, I also put the G in parentheses because it's been along the longest. It is the most SEO friendly for that reason. It works well with Google. Google knows what to expect from WordPress blogs. Another benefit is you can set WordPress blogs up for free. A significant con is if you are not a WordPress developer, or if you don't have a tremendous interest in or knowledge of coding, it can be clunky and not intuitive. There are a lot of plugins that you can use. It is very flexible, but you have to be able to access that flexibility. Many folks who do have blogs and websites on WordPress work with a WordPress developer for that reason. So that may be something that you are interested in because it does have a lot of power and flexibility, but you need to really have expertise or access to that. There's no built-in WordPress customer service because you can set up your site for free if you like. There are certainly paid options as well. Wix is really simple and easy to navigate. It's got a clean interface. There is a free version. There are paid versions as well. And a great feature of Wix is that you can get support and help from a call center during business hours. One of the challenges really of anything that's not WordPress, it's not as SEO friendly. If you're thinking about starting with Wix, but know that you probably are going to do a significant overhaul of your website soon, then I would recommend pausing on choosing Wix. They have a lot of gorgeous templates, but once you've selected one, it's really hard to make changes. It doesn't have the adaptability of WordPress. And with Squarespace, you've probably heard the commercials. It is really meant to be easy, beautiful to design. You pay a monthly fee for your site, but it allows you to not necessarily need a designer. There's 24-hour customer service support that you can have on chat, alleviating some of the frustration that happens with WordPress. But the downside is there's not a free option. There aren't a lot of plugins that are available like with WordPress. And I loved this quote that I saw about Squarespace. It's the IKEA furniture of website building. It is simple, clean design. Once you get the hang of it, you can do so much with it. So let's say, hopefully you have your notes, your document where you're jotting down ideas for your blog. You're ready to sit down and try your first blog post. Or maybe you took a pause from blogging and you're ready to get started again. So what does a successful blog post look like? What are some features that you should think about? Another difference in blogging, I mentioned that it's more casual. It's a different style of writing than with in newspapers or term papers. You want to try to be conversational, and there are some tricks to try to make it easy for people to find your post. The other thing to keep in mind, most people are going to be reading your blog on one of these. So things that could work on a desktop may not translate well to mobile. So that is what has informed some of the information here. Think about how people are consuming or likely to consume your content. So you want a compelling headline. I used to be, I still am, but I've gotten away from it. I used to kind of love the very clever headline that didn't really tell you what the post was about. That's a way that blogging is different. That's why you see things that are super clear. 5 ways to quickly find your engagement ring using the jewelry store example. It's the reason why headlines are like that. You are very clear on what is in that blog post. You know if it's for you or not. Because so many people will be reading on mobile devices, you want to make your blog skimmable. A wall of text is a great way to get people to go to something else. Think about your own patterns when you are searching online. So, and think of blog posts and content that you've seen online. Make it skimmable with headers, have numbered lists. Unfortunately, you could have written the greatest piece there is. A lot of people are just going to skim. So keep that in mind and make it so that it's helpful, even if someone just kind of looks at the headers. You always want to have images and video. You probably know that video is tremendously popular, as are images, and Google likes all of these things. If you don't have an image, that literally makes your post a wall of text. So have some images. You want to be mindful of licensing rights. I will give you some suggestions for at the end of the presentation of places, of sites that have good stock photo options and where the licensing won't be an issue. You can't just pull anything off of the internet. That would not be a great thing for your business if you have a charge of copyright infringement. And then you want to have external and also internal links to relevant information. Don't want to get stuck on that too much. It is an important point, but it's one of those areas that can kind of, folks can derail if they're not too tech savvy or haven't done this before. So think of the external link as kind of your reference. If you're writing a reaction to a news story, you know, NBC News has reported, and you can just kind of hyperlink to that story. That's an external link. You're connecting to the wider web. Google loves that. You want to do that a couple times. Internal links, once you have a bank of blog posts, you can then refer to things you've already written about, as we've talked about in this blog post. And that kind of, Google really likes that kind of connecting to other elements of your site as well as other sites. When you look at blog posts, and I'd love if you did this today or maybe over the next week when you're on a blog, think about this presentation and how you might translate it to your business. Keep your paragraphs short. That's a real big difference with blog writing versus other types of writing. Because it's more conversational, because you don't want it to be a wall of text, you'll see very often a sentence being a paragraph. That's done for a reason. It helps with the flow. It helps make it skimmable. So that's something you want to think about. No one wants to get kind of lost in a big paragraph on their phone and get frustrated and go to a different site. So really keep in mind, it's really important, and it's something Google looks at as well in coming up with rankings for sites. Think about the mobile phone. The mobile phone has changed so much of what we do in our lives. It's changed ways that blogging is done. And just keep that in mind, because that can be an easy way to remember the things that work and don't work. And you can likely use yourself as an example. You probably are wondering, how often should I blog? There are tons of different answers. I love reading kind of the latest research on best practices and things like that. And the answer is all over the place, depending on the source, on the year. And ultimately, I disagree with, I don't want to say I disagree, research is research, but if you're not going to blog because you hear that you have to do it once a day, then there's no point. So for that reason, my approach and my suggestion is figure out what your capacity is for blogging. Can you do it? Certainly, if you were able to do it every day, that's wonderful. How many of us can? 3 times a week is even challenging. So think about, could I do once a week? Could I do 2 times a month? Certainly, the less frequently you blog, the more it's going to take to kind of build up an audience, to build up that critical mass of content that I spoke about that Google really likes. But if it's what you're going to maintain, then that's really important. Consistency, it's really similar. Consistency in blogging is similar to consistency in exercising, for better or for worse. We're kind of young in 2021. Each year people are so committed and excited, and I'm going to hit the gym. Maybe a little bit different this year for obvious reasons, but They go all in, don't really consider their capacity to do this over the long term. And by February, people are burned out. They are done with whatever that exercise plan was. The same thing can happen with blogging. And very similarly, if you kind of go hard in the beginning, you are blogging every day for 30 days and then peter off, those effects aren't going to stay with you. You're going to have to start all over again to start rebuilding your audience for your audience to know when to expect to hear from you. That's another important part in the consistency piece. So think about what you can block out in your schedule and start there. Once you may find, okay, it doesn't take me as long to do a post as I thought it would. Great. Then you can decide to add on. I'd much rather you go in that direction versus saying, I'm going to post 3 times a week and then find you can't keep up with it and then you don't do it at all. Once you write a blog post, it's really important that you tell people it's there. Believe it or not, this is a step that most people I have worked with skip. People don't want to be self-promotional, or they think, okay, well, it's there. Where are my comments? You have to let people know it's there. You can do that in a number of ways that are pretty easy. All of those blogging platforms I mentioned have a way for you to schedule your post to publish and then to publish on certain social media platforms. So you can link things directly. Think about the platforms you're on. Something like Twitter moves so quickly that it's okay to share the same thing a few different ways within the same day or week. And if you have a newsletter, those are people who have shown they're really interested in what you have to say. That's a great place to share your blog post as part of your newsletter. I love, this is another tip I have to help you maximize your time and your energy. And so many people don't think of doing this. Recycling isn't just for plastic, I love to say. Reuse, repurpose, and reduce your effort with your content. I just mentioned newsletters. If you have newsletters that you have created in the past, email newsletters, maybe you even have some print newsletters, go back to those. That's information that you can use in a different way and put up on your blog. Social media posts. If it's a topic that is really interesting to you or something that people showed interest in, you can turn that into a blog post. If you have done videos, get those transcribed, turn it into a blog post. Make your efforts work for you in multiple different ways. And this is where I wanted to bring in, if you feel like you're not a strong writer, but you're more comfortable maybe in front of a camera, which is opposite of some folks, but that's okay. Some people feel like they can share their thoughts while talking, but they get kind of fumbled and intimidated when writing. Then go on video, or you can take audio notes again on your phone and then turn that into a blog post. Just clean up your writing. There are a lot of ways to make this easy to work with your schedule and to work with what you're comfortable with. So remember that this is a two-way street. It's a conversation. In your blog post, if you're wondering, how can that happen? Think about posts you've read yourself at the end or throughout the piece, but certainly at the end, you're writing on a topic, say, this is what I found has worked for me. What's been your strategy for dealing with this topic? Make it open-ended and invite folks to share. Keep in mind that just because you do that doesn't mean that people are automatically going to respond. You have to kind of build leverage with that consistent content. But people may reply in the comments, they may reply in social media. Once you've put a post out, I'm not saying you have to hang out on social media 24/7, but do be on the lookout to see if anyone is engaging with the content. Anyone who does, you want to be able to reply back, because it's a conversation. You don't want someone to say something and be unanswered. My strategy and biggest recommendation for making time for blogging, which is really hard, figure out when works for you, both in terms of time of day and time of week. I'm a morning person. I love sleep, but I'd rather wake up early, enjoy quiet hours before the rest of the house wakes up, and do things then. So that's when I have my thinking time. That's when, if I have blogging for my own or projects for clients, that's when I do my real thinking time. A lot of folks, so know what works for you in terms of time of day. Many folks on Sunday will make as their time to block out to do social media. Find the time that works for you, where maybe it's downtime or you can have quiet. And blocking out the time is so much easier than stopping and starting and coming back to it, or saying, you know, I want my blog post to go out every Monday at 8. And then you are trying to figure out what you're writing Monday at 6. Find the time in advance that works and use that as your time to do your blog post. So that's going to be part of the process that you think about when you consider how much can you take on. And you don't want to, again, using Monday morning as an example, you don't want to have to be sitting waiting to hit publish. You can go ahead and schedule your posts. Just be sure to keep tabs on them and see if people are engaging and what they're saying. And a couple of free resources, and then after this we will go to Q&A. Canva is an app you can use on desktop or phone that is great for a lot of things. If you're looking for designing kind of the header for your blog, or blog titles, pictures for blogs, or anything else are also in Canva. It's great for social media graphics. I'm a big Canva fan. For stock photos, places like Unsplash, Pexels, and Pixabay are some great places to go for free stock photos. I am a big fan of Unsplash because it's stock photos that don't look terribly stock photo-ish. They are from professional photographers who just want to get their names out there. So they ask that you give them credit. For learning to write headlines that are going to help people find your content, a company called CoSchedule has something called a headline analyzer, and you can literally go there and play around with the titles you're thinking of, and it'll help you figure out, you know, you'll get a score from 0 to 100, and from there you'll be able to tell, okay, that's good. Ooh, that was better, and that will help you get the hang of doing titles for blogs, for your blog posts. SEO things. Resources can be expensive, but if you are on WordPress, there's a plugin called Yoast that's great for helping you maximize SEO. To help you edit, Grammarly has an add-on extension for Chrome that is very good and it's free. It's no replacement for editing and proofreading, but it's a good kind of second bit of help. YouTube I put there because if you're wondering, a lot of people feel stressed about videos, and you may be thinking, oh, I have to have a video in each post, but I don't have a lot of videos. You can, if it's a topic, depending on the topic, if you reference something in your post, you can then go and in the end or within the body, include that post as a video. If you've created videos so folks can get a sense of you, you can go and upload them to YouTube. So it very much can be a tool and a resource for your blogging in a way that's very different than just using it for entertainment. And Moz Keyword Explorer, as I mentioned, there are a lot of SEO, especially keyword tools that can be a little bit pricey. This is a good free one that can help you begin to think about the types of words folks would use when trying to find your content and maximizing your SEO. So here is, I'm going to stop. We'll do Q&A for a couple of minutes. If you have questions, that is my email address. And yeah. Do we have any questions from anyone? One thing I will say, if there are, and interrupt me, Leslie, if there are questions.
Yeah, no, I don't have any questions.
Okay.
If you have any questions now, please type in the Q&A. You can also see that Brandon has her email address there as well.
Definitely. We went through a lot really quickly, but you know, just think about what works for you, what is special about your business. It can be an awkward thing to think about, and really lean into that. If there's anything you take away from this presentation, that's what I'd love you to think about.
Okay, thank you so much, Brandon, for all the great information. You have like why to blog, where to blog, how to blog, when to blog, tips. I mean, a lot of great information. Also, we just want to remind you, SCORE's here to help you with the next steps on blogging for business. Please reach out to your SCORE mentor for support. You're not alone in this process. If you aren't working with the SCORE mentor, you can request one by going to our website link that we have here or calling the number on the screen. This is Lillian Harvey. She's our office administrator. This information will also be included in the follow-up email that you'll get from SCORE, as well as the presentation. And finally, we do, this is again information on getting in touch with us. We want to thank Brandon so much for all the information. Was there anything else, Brandon, you wanted to share? I'm going to post a poll here. If you guys could take a few minutes, it's helpful to us. If you can do this poll, that would be great. Is there anything else, Brandon, that you wanted to say?
No, I just wanted to thank everyone who attended. Thanks for your time and for your attention. And if you have questions, please reach out.
Great. So here's our poll. Just take a few minutes, and thank you all for participating. I'm sorry we had a few glitches at the beginning. I think there was something going on with the Zoom account. So we just seemed to have but thankfully we were able to have the program, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
And hopefully everyone have a great day. All right, everyone, thank you for answering the poll, and thank you for participating. This concludes our session. Thank you.